First, I would like to state that I was also one of the people who was super excited for the reboot of Tokyo Mew Mew. I mean, the name wasn't great, but a reboot is a reboot. It was exciting to see my favorite magical girl anime come back again. This was the average response to the news about the reboot, but there were some things that I worried about personally. Like, was it going to follow the manga storyline, or is it going to be similar to the anime series from 2002? The only way to know would be to check out the series, which a crap ton of people did when it first came out. By the time I watched the first episode, I was not impressed. Don't get me wrong, I love the new animation and the fact that it can bring new audiences to the fandom is a good thing, because I am low on fanfics and I can only wait for someone to write something because I lack the creativity. Okay, back to the series itself. Everything seemed to follow the original script about 5 girls who can transform into magical girls to save the earth from aliens. There was a questionable point about one of the character designs though, not really about the girls because their outfit and new hairdos was very top tier. But the idea to make Masaya a different skin color is off-putting, apparently. I know in the manga everyone is technically white, but seeing Masaya with that skin color in the reboot was off-putting. In the 2002 version, Masaya was technically considered tan? In the 2002 version, Masaya was quote-unquote tanned. I don't know if that's the right term, but that's what people say he was. But he was white as the Blue Knight and in his deep blue form, so it's possible that he was light-skinned, but due to his kendo training, he got darker? If the case was that he wasn't training in kendo, then being light-skinned isn't problematic, but since he was, the better choice would have been to follow the 2002 version and made him tan, just to be consistent. This seemed to have offended some people in the community, and I can see why. Since there is a lack of diversity in anime already, it would have been nice to see a romantic interest with a different skin color in the shoujo community. But the new additions to the girls' design, like the ribbons, were a much needed change from the old series. It did give the reboot a more appealing idea, it added more flair to the girls, and it did make them look cuter. Also, the coloring is a major upgrade from before, but it does carry some similarities so that people who watch the 2002 version can see the resemblance. The voice acting seems to be very on par with the animation. Everyone seems to be new to follow the reboot name, Tokyo Mew Mew New. I do, however, have a personal issue with the voice of Sakura. It just doesn't seem to be quite fitting for her character. It didn't impact her or her development, but it didn't make me appreciate the character as much as I thought it would. I will explain that in a little bit. The storyline did follow more of the anime version rather than the manga. This meant that my brain was constantly comparing the two versions, and I still got myself thinking of the 2002 version despite looking at the reboot. The 2002 version was the one I started with and was what got me into buying the whole manga set. So I was very much in love with Tokyo Mew Mew. And Tokyo Mew Mew New honestly did okay, but was a little disappointing. I would like to summarize it all through character development, or well, the lack of it. Honestly, the main focus of the show was the girls, hence why their name is in the title and why their development was slightly better than all of the other characters. But there was truly a lack of development for the aliens despite them being the other kind of main character, the antagonists. First, Ichiko was pretty much the same as her previous version, who simply wanted to get together with her crush and was lucky that her crush likes her back. She is thrown into the leadership role when she's not quite ready, but eventually she adapted and led the team to battle against the aliens to prevent them from taking over. Her personality is very much the cheerful and sympathetic type who tries to listen to the views from each side and perhaps lend a hand. There are times when she might be brought down, but Ichigo will perk right up at the sound of her love interest or friends. And although she has a stalker alien following her around, that doesn't stop her from giving mercy to her former enemies who have tried countless times to kill them. This time, Mint was actually the first one to become a Mew Mew rather than Ichigo, so when Ichigo first transformed, she was the one who guided her through her powers. She is still the princess type, but rather than focusing on her love of dance like the previous version, her current focus is on finding her true self, even if it may be against her family's wishes. This version of Mint was refreshing. Although she wasn't a total selfish brat in the 2002 version, there were questionable moments when all she does is sit and sip her tea. Maybe she was giving money to Ryo and Keiichiro in the back so she doesn't have to work, but she can at least do something like check for alien tags in the basement. Tokyo Mew Mew Neo gave Min a much-deserved change to her personality by giving her more than just a princess role and making her question the role that's given to her rather than just accepting it. Letta's improved a lot in the new reboot. In the older version, she wasn't even given the chance to confess to Ryo and left things unsaid between them. While it may have been heavily implied that Ryo knew of her feelings, it would have been better to give closure and allow Lettuce to move on with her life. She starts out shy, but in the background, the girls helped her change, such as Ichigo stepping up for her against the bullies or Sakura lending a shoulder when things didn't go as expected with Ryo. In both versions, her changes were gradual, but it was present. It took her a little bit more time to get to where she wanted to be, but Lettuce was able to become the best version of herself. In the 2002 Tokyo Mew Mew, Lettuce achieved this through her battles when they were finding the Mew Aqua, where she learned to better understand herself and how she wants to do better. In Tokyo Mew Mew Neo, it was through her battles with love. One was the physical kind, where she had to go into the memories of the deceased aliens and learning to say things before they are left unsaid. And the other was getting her heart broken to allow her the chance to move on to something new. The confession made by Lettuce was a good step forward, as that meant she can try again later in the future or move on to something better. I actually think that Tokyo Mew Mew Neo did some of these girls really good, but also not enough, especially with Pudding and Sakura, who seemed kind of like an afterthought. Pudding in the current series was too childlike, which is why I do like her 2002 version, where she displays her moment of sadness as a child who misses her mother. There was an episode in which she gets sick and mistakes her sibling's teacher as her mother due to her high fever. During the time she was sick, and with the teacher caring for her, she realizes how much she misses her mother. Since she has been suppressing those feelings for her brothers, she simply didn't have the time to grieve and just held everything back for their sakes, never allowing herself to break out of her smiling face, and never letting them know about the sadness that is still inside of her. It was here that we realized that Pudding is still young, but that doesn't mean she doesn't know how the world works, how sad it is to lose a loved one, and this was highly missed in the reboot. Sakura was also given a similar treatment with her character development. Yes, I saw the episode where she was showing everyone a different side to her, but she can be lonely and want companionship, but also go through a lone wolf phase and almost disband the whole team. Now that's what I call having tensions and having shit go down. Like, this was pretty unexpected for a child like me, okay? One day they were teammates and the next Sakura decided they weren't. No one, and I mean no one, could have seen that coming. Not every team has to have good teammates right away, and the 2002 version showed that. Sakura was a lone wolf way before her Mew Mew days thanks to her unavailable parents who left her all alone. So when she saw a little girl who reminded her of her younger self, Sakura wanted this little girl to know that she is not going to be alone forever and that someone will come her way later in the future. Sakura does help her now by being next to her like she had wanted someone to be when she was alone. Now Sakura realizes she has her team and that she is no longer alone. But the reboot didn't show any of that, and I'm a little sad that episode was most of the screen time Sakura got from the entire series. Even though the reboot was great in bringing in new audiences to the fandom, I can't help but think that it was underwhelming and the girls did not receive the proper screen time. And now, on to the boys! Ryo and Keiichiro play a big role in the Tokyo Mew Mew series. They are literally the ones who founded the team and gave the girls the guidance when they needed it. So to just push them to the side and only telling their story till the middle and kind of towards the end was a poor decision for the reboot. Although they're technically supporting characters, in the 2002 version they were given more history and a little more depth to their character. Keiichiro was more than just a pastry chef. He had a life outside of the Tokyo Mew Mew project but chose to stay to help the girls and Ryo out.
私たちお互いの研究を捨てるわけにはいかないみたい。多分今日から私たちの人生は別の道をたどるの。
In the end, he chooses Ryo and the Mew Mews because he also felt responsible for the project and taking away the normal lives of the girls. But we do see more of Ryo and his situation, how he feels responsible for the girls and putting them in such dangerous situations. It was just that they were chosen not simply on his whim, but because the Earth felt that its very well-being lies in the hands of these girls. Ryo had even experimented on himself to make sure the side effects to these animal genes do not cause bodily harm.
適応していないものにミュー遺伝子を打てばどうなるか開発者であるあなたが誰よりも分かっていたでしょうに
And this made audiences realize that these people had more to their life and that they didn't do all of this for no reason. It just seems that the reboot kind of dismisses them and made them a lesser priority despite the big role they play in the series. But the thing with Masaya is that he was a little boring still, and the only reason he became interesting is through his connection with Deep Blue, and that is all I have to say for him. The aliens were simply just okay. They were pretty similar to each version, with Pai being the stern follower, Kishu being a stalker, and Tart being the kid. It is truly such a shame that Pai and Kishu weren't the love interests of Lettuce and Ichigo because that would have made the series a little more entertaining. But the reboot did add a twist to some of their scenes, with Kishu confessing his love with such desperation that was from the manga.
こんなにもイチゴのことが好きなのに
And even showing Pai with feelings of anger towards Deep Blue for going back on his word and almost leaving their people in their cold planet, even though the god had promised them salvation.
あなたには我々の道しるべとなっていただく
Tart did have his brief moment to shine where he realizes humans are the same as them, wanting a place to simply call their own and to protect their loved ones. He finds that connection through pudding, and this meant that he's simply just a kid who just wanted to return to his people and live a life he wants and not what others expect of him. I do feel that the aliens were given a new perspective by showing how they lived before they were forced to evacuate the planet a little bit more closely. Seeing that they were a civilization that lived on the same Earth the humans had meant they can also be considered Earthlings or people who had lived on Earth. Even though they're called aliens in the series, they technically can be Earthlings who are fighting against each other, and that's sad because this is something that happens a lot between humans already. And it's a good thing that they can make peace at the end despite all the things that have happened. I didn't hate the reboot, but I found it to be only okay. The characters were not as well developed as the first version. It seemed like the focus was to show off the new version of the Mew Mews and the power of friendship, finding love, having the ability to pursue our goals, and other life lessons that are great, but a reboot was just really unnecessary. There were new scenes that were not available in the 2000s version that reeled me in, but because I know what happened, I was constantly comparing the two versions. Ultimately, the 2002 version had a stronger hold on me even if the animation is outdated. And it was still very nice to revisit my childhood through the reboot.